Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Keatner from the Westfield Engineering Department. I'm here with our consultants from Bowman. We're here to do a update for our safety action plan. Um, we'll go through a presentation and I'll turn it over to Eric.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm Eric Weiss. I'm a project manager with Bowman and here with our team, Laura, Ben, and Randy. We have had the privilege of working with the City of Westfield on a Safe Streets for All safety action plan since this past spring. And we wanted to come out and provide an update. We're going to do it here on Zoom. You can see our agenda here. We're going to run through a series of slides going through all of these areas. Number 5 there, the interactive polling is going to involve you taking your phone out so you can scan a QR code that will take you to a poll. So if you happen to have your phone handy, it would be good to have it nearby. You might also want to have a paper and a pen handy in case you need to jot anything down. And then we will save all the Q&A for the end. So next slide, please. So just a little housekeeping. Everybody's going to stay muted for the time being. The Q&A function referred to here on the slide is not working tonight. So we're going to unmute people, I suppose, and ask people to speak their questions rather than typing them in.
People can
So
raise
that'll
their
happen
hand
at the
and
end.
we'll just call upon them to unmute.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Peter.
People can raise their hand and then we can call on them to unmute.
Okay. I'm not immediately seeing that the raise hand function is available either. So let's maybe we can work on that. So yes, could I have the next slide, please? Just as a little bit of background for a couple of slides, these are your task force members. They're on the left. Our Safe Streets task force members, led by Joe, who you have on your screen, and Matt from the engineering division, with the mayor on the task force and one member of your city council, along with representatives of all of the city departments that in one way or another have a say in roadway safety, including public works and planning, all of the first responders, and the schools department as well. Next slide, please. So just for a little more background on the program itself, this project is being accomplished with a grant from USDOT. The grant program is called Safe Streets and Roads for All. We call it Safe Streets for All for short because it's quite a mouthful otherwise. The overarching goal of Safe Streets for All is to significantly reduce and ultimately eliminate roadway fatalities. And this national effort is underpinned by the safe system approach. This is a relatively new way of looking at crashes on our roads. You can see it's a 5-tiered approach. And by having different layers of safety issues we can address, we can accommodate for failure. So safer vehicles, that's great for people inside the vehicles, also people outside the vehicles. But if there's something goes wrong, there are 4 other ways that we can help prevent serious injuries and fatalities. Next, please. So we're going to be walking through 3 major portions of our work today with updates. And to start us off, to talk about the crash data analysis that's been accomplished since April, I'm going to invite Laura.
Thanks, Eric. We can go over to the next slide, please. So our task was to look at the most recent 6-year period of data from the MassDOT crash portal. And at the time of our analysis, 2021 was the most recent closed year. So we're looking at the years 2016 to 2021 throughout the city of Westfield, with the exception of the highway and the ramps to the highway. So in that 6-year period, we were seeing 3,829 total crashes in the city. Next slide, please. So the findings we're going to discuss are going to relate to our crash volumes, our crash severity, fatal and serious injury crashes, which we're going to refer to as FSI crashes, crash trends by month and year, and vulnerable road user crashes, which we'll refer to as VRU crashes. Next slide, please. So this is just another visual here of those same 3,829 crashes. Next slide, please. Here you can see in the yellow dots, these are going to be the injury and fatal crashes. So we saw just over 1,100 injury and fatal crashes. So it was about 30% of all crashes. And then there were some crashes that had multiple injuries. So that's why we're seeing about 1,500 total injuries and fatalities. Next slide, please. So looking at serious injury and fatality, we had about 2.5%. 81 were serious injury and 13 were fatal, for a total of 94. The serious injury here is going to refer to the incapacitating crashes, which means it's someone typically taken by ambulance because they are no longer able to drive. This could be due to broken bones, excessive blood loss, or crush injuries. So that's what we're going to focus on for those serious injury crashes. Next slide, please. So again, looking at those FSI crashes, you can see the 81 there and the 13. So on average, over this 6-year period, the average was 16 per year, or about one every 3 weeks. So in this safety action plan, we're going to have a Vision Zero goal, which is to reduce and eventually eliminate all FSI crashes. And this is going to be a timeline goal. So we're still working on what that timeline is going to be, but that will be part of our plan. Next slide, please. So here we're going to show the yearly trends. The top line is those serious injury crashes, and the bottom line is those fatal crashes. So we can see in the serious injuries, we have a dip in the 2018 and 2021 years. And then for the fatal, there was actually 0 in 2018, but otherwise it was pretty steady throughout the 6-year period. Next slide, please. I think it went one forward. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Vulnerable road users. So these are those VRUs. So that would be people walking and biking. So we saw about 3% of all of the crashes involved those VRUs, but they accounted for 22% of all the FSI crashes. So we saw a total of 21 VRU FSI crashes. Next slide, please. Looking at crash severity by mode, again, you can see that the pedestrians and bicyclists, which are those VRUs, have a higher percentage of fatal and serious injury crashes. Even though there's a smaller amount of them, the percentage-wise, they are higher for fatal and serious injuries. Next slide, please. Excuse me. For the time of day, this is looking at all crashes in the city. We're seeing the Thursday and Friday. Those had the highest number of crashes for the day of week. And then for the time-wise, we're seeing that 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. and 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. windows And this is typically due to just the bulk of traffic on the road is at around those periods. So that's probably why we're seeing a little bit higher of crashes during those times. Next slide, please. This is just looking at those 94 fatal and serious injury crashes. And we see that Friday and Saturday are the highest here. And then the 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. window, as well as the 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. window were the highest. Next slide, please. So this is showing the crashes by month. So this gray line towards the top is going to be the all crashes, and the green line is showing the FSI crashes. So for our all crashes, we're seeing a little bit of a spike from October to December. And then for our FSI crashes, we're seeing that spike in September. Next slide, please. So we created a heat map, and this was based off of the MassDOT geolocated points. We put them into GIS and we're able to create this map. So we can see that the downtown area is definitely our biggest hotspot area, with a couple points in the north and northeast parts of the city. They had a few hotspots up there as well, but definitely centralized to the downtown area. Next slide, please. So those FSI crashes are definitely more dispersed throughout the city, but again, we do have that hotspot in the downtown area, as you can see in the yellow. But yeah, they are very, very dispersed throughout the city. Next slide, please. And for the vulnerable road users, again, that downtown area is really our big hotspot here. You can see a few light blue areas around, but definitely that downtown area is our hotspot. Next slide.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Laura. So the upshot for why we're doing all this analysis is it's leading us toward the intersections and stretches of roadway that have proven to be the most dangerous for residents of Westfield, and will tell us where we need to focus our attention as we make recommendations to the city. But the data isn't the only way that we are sort of narrowing down on locations. We've been undertaking public engagement since spring, and our conversations with the public and the survey that's been open and interactive map that's been available for people on the city's website has also given us a great deal of information. So to walk us through what public engagement has looked like since the start of the project, I'm going to invite Ben.
Cool. Thank you, Eric, and hi, everyone. Ben from Bowman, going to walk everyone through the public engagement that we've done today and summary of the results so far. Joe, you can go to the next slide. So many of you have joined us for some of these events, so I appreciate everyone who's on the call and has kind of stayed in the loop on this project. And for those of you who are kind of new to the project, welcome. Public engagement is a really important part of this project because we want this plan, the safety action plan, to be reflective of Westfield and what the concerns and issues you all have, and have it be an implementable and actionable plan. So we've done a lot of kind of like meeting people where they are. So we've gone to the Mayor's Bike Ride, the Westfield 5K, and then more recently at the Senior Center, the Senior Options event. So we've had the opportunity to have a lot of great conversations with folks. When we've been doing these in-person events, we've kind of focused on focusing on locations, like what locations do people have concerns? So you can see like the comment map we've put together on the poster there, and then other sort of activities where people can kind of vote for their kind of favorite or preferred countermeasures or what their, concerns they're seeing in the community are. So you can go to the next slide, Joe, just to see a snippet of, yep, okay. And then we also did the open house events on August 19th and 20th at the Athenaeum. in Westfield. So thank you to those of you who joined us for that event. Those were great. Got a lot of great conversations. And you can see some of the activities that we were doing there. Go to the next slide, Joe. So yeah, we heard from folks about which street improvements do they prefer. We got a lot of good feedback. There seemed to be consensus or at least preferences for like raised crosswalks, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, other things like multi or like shared use paths, like such as the rail trail, to bring cyclists off of the road. And then also for speed limit reductions citywide, just to bring speeds down and to whatever means possible. And then on the right, you can see like a snippet. This is the comment map. It's not nearly as filled out, but that's because it was at the beginning of the day when we took the picture. But we've gotten a multitude of comments on that map as well. Go to the next slide, Joe. And then many of you have also taken the survey. So thank you to those who have taken the survey. Folks had the opportunity to take it both in person on paper, but also online through the project website. So I'll just like go through some of the preliminary results we've gotten so far. So one of the questions was what type of destinations would you like for it to feel safer to travel to? 73% the top destination was downtown, which we saw reflected in the crash data, seemed to be where a lot of the hot spots are and the intersections with the most safety concerns. Shopping plazas, we also saw down on Route 20, where near Big Y, those kind of areas, and Home Depot, and then recreation areas and parks. Should also mention too, we received, I think the total was around 150 survey responses, which was a good response rate. So thank you to those of you who took the survey. You can go to the next slide, go through a few more results. What transportation safety issues concern you the most? Distracted driving, not surprising, speeding, unsafe intersection, poor pavement conditions. So again, people were ranking these 1 through 5 as like least concerning to most concerning. So we'll take all of this into account as we're developing our locations and also our recommendations for safety improvements as we develop those further. Go to the next slide. Lastly, the top safety improvements you'd like to see. Again, greater enforcement of traffic laws, safer crosswalks at intersections, better striping and pavement markings were some of the top recommendations. Another one, it's a little bit cut off there, but it's reduced speeding through speed humps and narrower lanes. That's one we can take into account as we're developing our countermeasures. And then more separated bike lanes or bike paths. You can go to the next slide. Many of you have also contributed to the comment map. Again, we did this in person and then we uploaded the comments to the online comment map, and then many of you have also filled it out online. So again, thank you for your participation. We received over nearly 200 comments and then well over 100 likes on those comments. So thank you for all the people who liked the comments as well. Again, all throughout town, all throughout the city, basically, but focused on some of the main corridors and in the downtown area as well. You can go to the next slide. This is kind of just a smattering of some of the top comments we received. These are the most liked comments for each category. So, like on the left, you see the top most liked comment for driving concerns was on Southampton Road and North Road. People being a little bit confused about the lane configurations and the feeling like it's dangerous in that location. We also saw comments on North Elm Street for biking, safety improvement ideas. There was an idea for Thomas Street and Feed Street for a safety improvement idea for a raised intersection. So again, just a lot of people. It was nice to kind of see people kind of build on each other's ideas and like those ideas and kind of raise some of those issues to the top, which was helpful to see for us. You can go to the next slide. So I'll pass it back to Eric now. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Ben, so much for walking us through all of that. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the locations that we're going to do a deep dive on, and that it's a combination of the analysis of the crash data plus what we learn from community members who we've interacted with that leads us to our list of targeted locations for which we're going to dig a little deeper and make fine-grained recommendations for. And so to walk us through that, we're inviting Laura to come back.
Thank you. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is our countermeasure locations. So our selection process was a little bit of an iterative process. We started out by looking at our crash data, and we created a baseline. So we looked at segments that had a minimum of 20 crashes and intersections that had a minimum of 10 crashes, just to give us a baseline of where to start. And then we reviewed the comment map, and we reviewed information from those public engagement sessions, and then we added locations to our list from those. And then we needed to review locations that have either already undergone improvements recently or are going to be planned to have improvements, because we don't want to overlap work there. So those locations are noted in green on this map. And there's quite a few, so that's awesome that a lot of work will be done in the city. So from this list that we developed, we then took the top 20 locations, and this was based on crash rates, vulnerable road user crashes, comments and likes on the comment map, and then equivalent property damage only calculations, which is essentially a weighted calculation. Injury and fatalities get a weight of 21, and property damage only get a weight of 1, and then you can kind of calculate that rate that way. So we came up with 12 intersections and 8 roadway segments. And I'd like to note that in addition to these locations, we're also going to have citywide countermeasures. So even if a location that you think was important isn't covered here, it may potentially be covered in a citywide countermeasure. So the next slide is just going to re-show the heat map just to give a comparison of how our intersections and segments lined up with that heat map. So if we can just go to the next slide. Okay, so we can see again that downtown area, which is kind of where we focused, and then that hot spot up at North Road at Southampton Road, and that point over in the northeast as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to walk through 3 different spotlight locations. I'm going to walk through 1 segment, 1 unsignalized intersection, and 1 signalized intersection. And I'm just going to talk about potential countermeasures that we would look at. We haven't gotten too far into this process yet, so these are just like our starting points. We're definitely going to dig deeper as we go, but we started out with looking at the Federal Highway Administration, which gives 28 countermeasures, and it's within 5 categories. So they have speed management, pedestrian and bicyclist, roadway departure, intersections, and cross-cutting. And cross-cutting is a strategy that addresses multiple safety focus areas. So we looked at those countermeasures, and then MassDOT also provides guidance, so we're going to look at that as well. So the spotlight roadway segment that I chose here is Elm Street. Over the 6-year period, we saw 142 crashes. About half were rear-end collisions. Mostly were property damage only collisions. We saw 1% of vulnerable road users, mostly during daylight conditions. And then we saw 32% were categorized as reckless driving. And for reckless driving, we included speeding, following too closely, and then driving in a reckless, careless manner. So the countermeasures that we would start looking at for segments would be appropriate speed limits for all road users, and crosswalk visibility enhancements, and that could include high visibility crosswalks with like ladder lines, reflective markings, lighting at the crosswalk, and enhanced crosswalk signage. And then another countermeasure we could look at would be speed feedback signs. So that's the sort of things that we would look at for roadway segments. If we can go to the next slide, I'll talk about the unsignalized intersection. So I chose Holyoke Road at Springdale Road. We saw 67 crashes here. Mostly were angle collisions. Just over half were property damage only, mostly during daylight conditions, and then 76% were categorized as disregarding traffic controls. That includes, as it says, disregarding traffic controls and also failing to yield to right-of-way or making a wrong turn. So the things that we would look at for unsignalized intersections would be, this is a mouthful, but systemic application of multiple low-cost countermeasures at stop-controlled intersections. So this essentially includes enhanced signage and pavement markings. So we could double up stop signs, putting one on each side of the road, retro-reflective signage, and looking to see if the stop bars are placed in the proper location. We could also suggest evaluating for either an all-way stop control or a signal if it were to meet those warrants. Please go to the next slide and we'll talk about the signalized intersection. So I chose Pleasant Street at South Maple Street and West Silver Street. We saw 48 crashes here, 44% angle, 38% rear end, mostly property damage only, 69% daylight conditions, and then we saw a portion categorized as the reckless driving and a portion categorized as disregarding traffic controls. With signalized intersections, we could look at backplates with retroreflective borders. This is just to make those signal heads kind of pop out more. They're more visible to people. Dedicated left and right turn lanes. You can see West Silver Street already has left turn lanes, but we could look at is it appropriate to have turn lanes for the side streets or for other signalized intersections? Maybe the main line doesn't have it and we would look to add it there. Yellow change intervals. So this is just your yellow light. If it's too short, it could be that there's not enough time for vehicles to stop, but if it's too long, people could be treating it as like an extended green. So we would want to make sure that those are properly timed. You can see that there are crosswalks here. I'm not sure if this is exclusive phasing or concurrent phasing. If it is concurrent phasing, one thing you could look at would be a leading pedestrian interval, which is essentially the pedestrians get about 3 to 7 seconds a head start before the vehicles are going. So it kind of gets them out in the crosswalk. They're more visible to the vehicles. We could look at those crosswalk visibility enhancements again. And then this intersection has post-mounted signal heads on the sidewalk. So we could look at overhead mounted signal heads just to get them kind of more visible to drivers. So those are the countermeasures that we would look at for segments, unsignalized, and signalized intersections. And again, this is just our starting points. We'll definitely dig more into this as we go along. Next slide, please.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Laura. And if anybody wants to learn more about these proven safety countermeasures that Laura has been talking about, USDOT maintains a website all about proven safety countermeasures with descriptions of all of the 28, which includes the demonstrated reduction in crashes that can happen when using those countermeasures. So that's actually very interesting to peruse if you have the time. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, being done This project is being done as a US DOT funded project. Safe Streets for All is a federally run program. And by having a complete and adopted safety action plan, the city becomes eligible to apply for implementation funds. In order to have a complete safety action plan, there are a number of mandatory sections, and policy analysis and recommendations is one of those mandatory sections. So to walk us through that, I'm going to invite Randy.
You're on mute, Randy.
Sorry, next slide. All right. So the goal of our policy analysis was to learn how the city conducts its business from a safety perspective and anything that can maybe change or be done differently to improve safety. So we looked at local policies, practices, and ordinances, and we also conducted interviews with city staff and MassDOT staff that have some oversight of roadway safety issues within the city of Westfield. Next slide. So some of our draft recommendations that we're considering putting into our safety action plan, including having the city develop a policy on lane widths for road projects. Right now, the Westfield DPW typically repaves roads with the same width that's there. There's no city policy on what the lane widths should be, and if the city should narrow them during repaving projects. So narrower lane widths do often encourage slower speeds. A good local example is Western Ave versus Southampton Road, both two-lane roads, but Western Ave has much narrower lanes and encourages a little bit slower speeds. Another recommendation is for the city to prepare a sidewalk network plan in some of the denser areas of town. This would be a long-term plan for which streets in Westfield should get sidewalks. Next slide. Other recommendations include reducing the required pavement width in small subdivisions. Westfield's subdivision ordinance currently requires 24-foot wide roads, but that could be reduced to 20 feet or 22 feet, which would encourage slower vehicle speeds in smaller, newer neighborhoods. Another recommendation is perhaps to have the city raise parking fines relating to roadway safety. Existing fines right now for parking on a sidewalk or in a crosswalk or in an intersection are only $15 to $25, so likely not much of a deterrent for people to park in those places. Another recommendation is to enact a progressive ticketing campaign, which is a three-step campaign. Number one, just starting with a broad education and outreach phase about safety issues. The second phase is a warning phase, followed by an enforcement and ticketing phase. Next slide. Some other recommendations that we have may include having an education campaign on roadway safety for city board and commission members with jurisdiction over safety. So that would be the city council, the traffic commission, planning board, and perhaps others. There's been a lot of changes in the past 10 years in terms of current thinking about roadway safety, and we just want to make sure everyone is aware of the current thinking. We'll recommend to publicize the existence of the Traffic Commission and how residents can submit requests. It's not apparent that many residents know about the Traffic Commission as a way to address some safety concerns within the city. Recommend revisiting the list of streets in the city of Westfield that prohibit trucks. The existing list of streets that has restrictions on trucks is about 6 years old, so it's time for the city to revisit that based on new development and travel patterns. Recommend improving communication with MassDOT, particularly regarding maintenance requests on state roads, project status, and construction schedules for various construction projects. And lastly, we may recommend that the city requests that the state RMV accept supplemental crash reports again. So Westfield officers used to very often write supplemental crash narratives or crash reports that need more detail that fits on the standard state crash report. And it's just a fairly small space where they can write a narrative. The RMV told the city that they don't always get the attachments and told the city that they will no longer accept them. But, there are often times when officers do need to provide more detail on on what happened in a crash. So it would be great if the state can accept those again. Next slide.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much, Randy, for walking us through that. So we've come to the point of the presentation where we're going to do the interactive polling. This is where we're going to ask everybody to pull your phones out and get ready to scan a QR code. I'm going to hand this over to Ben to walk us through this process.
All right, thanks everyone, and thanks for everyone for bearing with us so far and listening to us talk. Now is the fun part where we get to hear from you. So if you can go to the next slide, Joe. So there's two ways to kind of get to here. You can either, if you have your phone, you can scan your QR code, scan the QR code here. Alternatively, if you have another browser open or if you have your phone, available and can go to a website, you can go to menti.com and enter that code that you see at the bottom of your screen. So we'll just give folks a little bit of time to join. I see 14 folks are in. So we'll try to see if we can get closer to 20, 16. Good. All right, we'll just give folks a few more seconds to join. So again, you can scan the QR code or go to the website and enter that code as well. All right, why don't we go ahead? You can go to the next slide. All right, so the first question we wanted to get from folks is asking, how do you usually travel around Westfield? Again, you can select all that apply. So if you typically drive, walk, bike, use the PVTA, or travel by a mobility device such as a wheelchair, mobility scooter, or a walker. Curious to hear how folks are traveling around and what sort of mix we have here. So we'll give folks a little bit of time to respond. Boy, some of these shades of red and purple are very similar, but looks like not surprisingly, this similar to what we received on the survey. Most folks are traveling around Westfield in their car, but a good mix also of people walking, biking, and taking transit as well. So that's good to see that there's a lot of different modes represented here. So we'll go to oh, still getting some responses. All right, if you haven't already, you can fill it out and press submit. But then we'll go to the next slide, Joe. Okay, so the next slide, I'm just going to explain this quickly. So we are asking for your input on the prioritization criteria. So again, Laura, my colleague, represented some of our targeted locations, kind of our 20 locations we're focused on right now, 12 intersections and 8 corridors. And so part of our process is to help the city of Westfield rank and prioritize those projects. So, what's the most important project and, what are some of the not as important and crucial projects? And so to do that, we are basically developing scoring criteria to evaluate the importance and the impact of those projects. And we're asking for your help today in identifying what are those important criteria that we should consider. And so on the following slide, you'll see a list of criteria. And we're going to ask you to rank those from 1 being the least important to 5 being the most important. And I should clarify too, or a slight caveat that these are all very important criteria. And so, we've done this before where, use your 5 sparingly. These are all very important criteria, but what maybe only rank a few as 5 because those are the most important, the ones that rise to the top. And so we'll give folks, Joe, you can go to the next slide. We'll give folks time to respond. and I can explain some of these. So the criteria that we're presenting, we have 8. The first 2 are high crash locations for all vehicle types. The next one is high crash location for cyclists and pedestrians. The next one is low cost or simple implementation, so projects that are relatively cheap and easy to implement if those are important. The next one is locations that were identified on the public comment map. So if, maybe it's not reflecting the crash data per se, there might be, but also if it's, something that a location that folks commented on the comment map that you saw earlier. And the next 4 have to do with location. So what are they near? So near a school or park, location under city control, if that's important, because sometimes it's easier for the city to do something if it's under their control as opposed to MassDOT, and then near public housing or senior housing, and then near a PPTA stop. So great, I see results are trickling in, and that's great. I should add also our wonderful task force that we work with will also be doing this activity and helping us evaluate and rank projects or criteria. So we'll be getting a lot of different input in this process as we go. So I see 10, looks like 10 responses. Give folks time. I know it's gonna be a lot to go through and think about, so give folks a few more minutes to respond. Nice. Looks like we might be looking for 2 more responses, so we'll give folks a little bit more to respond. All right, and if there's still someone who hasn't responded, you can go ahead and do so now, and we'll move to the next slide shortly.
I think we can move to the next slide.
All right, perfect. Joe, go ahead. All right, and then for the next slide, it's a bit more, you can type in your own answers. So name some types of roadway safety improvements you'd like to see in Westfield. You can submit as many as you'd like. So just keep on typing different things and press submit as you go, and we'll see a word cloud kind of begin to appear. So what are some types of roadway safety improvements you'd like to see in Westfield? Not necessarily specific locations, but if there's certain types of features you'd like to see or improvements in general. There we go. Nice. And again, I know you're only seeing a snippet of the answers right now, but we will have all of this input recorded and be able to use this to help inform the development of our countermeasures. Again, yeah, this is great. These are all the types of things that we're looking at, and I know even in Laura's presentation, she went over some of these countermeasures. So yeah, a mix of different things from, physical interventions in the roadway, vertical deflection, horizontal deflection, police, enforcing traffic laws, all good stuff. Give folks a little bit more to respond. I know we want to finish up by the end of the hour, so All right. Well, thank you all so much for your participation. Again, this is what makes these plans useful for the city and actionable and, better reflecting what the city and its people are looking for. So thank you all so much for your input. Go to the next slide, Joe.
All right, terrific. And thank you for getting us through that. And thanks to everybody for providing your opinions and your thoughts. We're going to talk next steps now, and here we see a timeline. Outlined in red is where we are right now. So you can see the data analysis has completed. The public engagement is just about wrapped up. Randy's policy analysis has concluded. And we're going to start moving next into reviewing these targeted locations, doing field visits, taking very careful observations, and then begin to develop our lists of countermeasures for each of those locations. And ultimately, we will be providing a report to the city in the spring. The timing of that is such that for the last few years, US DOT has always issued its notice that a grant application period is open in June. So, as I mentioned, having the safety action plan is a mandatory precursor to being able to apply for Safe Streets for All implementation grants. So by getting this to the city in the spring, we'll make sure that we hit that deadline. And I think we can go to the next one, which is our Q&A. Before people start raising their hands, their digital hands, that is, I want to just point out that email address there, which you may want to jot down. Any questions that you don't think of until later and you want to send in, you can send those questions to that email address. Or if you have a question now, but we run out of time before we get to you, please send those questions to that engineering@cityofwestfield.org address, and we will answer each and every one of them. So with that, Peter, can you and tell people how to raise their hands so that they can be unmuted by you?
Well, if you go to React and you click the up arrow, recognize hand gestures, and you can do the raise hand, and we'll just call on people. I think
Terrific.
Amy Porter
So-
has a question from the West.
Excellent. Amy, what's on your mind? Amy, is it possible that you're muted?
She can unmute herself, so.
Okay,
Maybe-
sorry.
There we go.
Are you gonna post this presentation anywhere?
That's a good question, and I'll ask Joe if this is a presentation that he'd like us to post. We have the capacity to do so.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think. Sorry, I was just going to answer
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
I think that we could probably link it somehow to the Safe Streets for All website for those people who thought maybe they missed something and they wanted to take another look at it. So we could have it on our website.
great, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Amy. And after we answer your questions, please remember to pull your hand back down so we don't think you have a follow-up. Anybody else? I see Marianne.
Hi, excuse me. Is it true? I mean, since beyond the North Elm Street and where it goes into Holyoke Road there, the rest by the turnpike is the state highway, so you don't have jurisdiction over that part of the city, Southampton Road.
So there are, city streets and there are roadways that are controlled by the state. And that's one of the reasons we asked in one of the interactive poll questions if you wanted us to focus more to prioritize streets that are under municipal control. We deliberately left out all of the limited access roadways, that's the interstate, and the on and off ramps for the interstate. Having said that, we can make recommendations for state roads, but this is a city plan, not a state plan. So the city can go to the state and say, here's the recommendations that came out of our process, and we'd like to work with you to get these countermeasures put in place. But the city will not actually have control over that process. Does that answer your question, Marianne?
Yes, thank you. And I don't know if anybody else had trouble using the link on the city website and if that counts for other people not connecting to this, but it took me a while to get in and I don't even remember how I did it, but I couldn't use the link that was in an email or the one that was on the city website. Just so you know, there might have been more people that had tried to get connected.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that.
Thank you for your answer.
Anybody else have a question? Well, if there are no more questions, then I guess it may be time for us to wrap up a little bit earlier than anticipated.
Okay. As Eric said, if there are no more questions, I would like to thank all of you for attending. And just to reiterate on your screen, there's the engineering@cityofwestfield.org for comments or questions that you may have. You could leave a voicemail or use this website link on the bottom, but you could also go to cityofwestfield.org, which is the main city website, go to departments, engineering, and we have something Safe Streets for All under there. So again, thank you all for attending and for commenting, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Peter.